Good morning, SKN. I'm Jamie Morris.
And I'm Cortensia Carty.
Thank you for joining us today, March 8th, International Women's Day. We proceed now to the latest in local news. This from SKNIS. Honorable members of the National Assembly lent their support to global gender parity during Tuesday's sitting, March 7th, of the National Assembly. The sitting, which came on the eve of International Women's Day, celebrated globally on March 8th, also saw a bipartisan show of support for gender parity, with members across both benches donning hues and accents of purple. During her announcement, Speaker, the Honorable Lanny Blanchett, took the opportunity to address members of the House and the wider public on gender equity. Speaker Blanchett invited those present to imagine, quote, a world free of bias and discrimination, one that is equitable and filled with inclusivity, end quote. This dream, she posited, has in part been realized within our country, evidenced by the increased number of women who sit within the hallowed halls of the National Assembly. Presently, women make up around 30% of the membership of the National Assembly of St. Christopher and Nevis, with women also leading in crucial roles such as the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Clerk, and parliamentary councils. On behalf of the National Assembly, happy International Women's Day is wished to all women and girls within our beautiful federation and the wider world.
We continue now. This from SKNIS. The world needs more women and girls in tech. This was the rallying cry during the opening segment of the Commission on the Status of Women that recently convened at the United Nations and ends on March 17. Her Excellency Nurse Dockery headed the all-female delegation representing the Federation, which also include Ms. Asha de Souza, First Secretary in the Permanent Mission of St. Kitts and Nevis to the United Nations, and was also joined by Dr. Christine Walwyn and Ms. Diane Williams of the International Federation of Business and Professional Women. The delegation will soon be joined by the Honorable Senator Isley Phillip, Junior Minister in the Ministry of Social Development et al. St. Kitts and Nevis UN diplomat, Ambassador Nurse Dockery, said this year's convening of the CSW is taking place at a critical juncture. Today, delegates, especially delegates from small states like St. Kitts and Nevis, are here to draw global attention to the unequal pace of digital transformation within and across countries. As a result of these challenges, the digital divide has become a new face of gender inequality.
And in other news, this from Win Media SKN. Miss Independence Square, Kayla Benjamin, claimed the Queen title at the inaugural Miss Heritage pageant hosted by the Sadler's Secondary School on Saturday night, March 4th, 2023. Benjamin was crowned by Parliamentary Representative for Constituency Number 6, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas. The first runner-up position was awarded to contestant number 4, Miss Brimstone Hill, Christina Ritty, while second runner-up was awarded to contestant number 1, Adriana Bergen, Miss Berkeley Memorial. The other contestants were Miss Black Rocks, Alicia Palmer, and Javicia Finch, Miss Carabelle Batik. On their journey to pageant night, the contestants were engaged in several personal development sessions and bonding moments. Carnival teen queen Takila Hart Johnson met with the contestants and shared tips on how to boost their confidence on pageant night. Former Miss National Carnival queen Kaive Mimi Armstrong engaged the contestants in a self-care development session. The contestants also had an opportunity to bond at a lunch hosted at Kittishan Hill and a live interview here on Good Morning SKN.
Indeed, with the neck turn and the side eyes. Now for the weather, it's mostly sunny with a high of 81 degrees and a low of 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Currently 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Take a look at your local weather as we go to a break. We will be back shortly.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate the achievements of women and girls across all walks of life in all corners of the world. But we also recognize the enormous obstacles they face, from structural injustices, marginalization and violence, to cascading crises that affect them first and worst, to denial of their personal autonomy and rights over their bodies and lives. Gender-based discrimination harms everyone, women, girls, men and boys. International Women's Day is a call to action. Actions to stand with women while demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost. Action to strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse. And action to accelerate women's full participation and leadership. This year's theme stresses the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality. Technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls, but it can also be used to amplify abuse and hatred. Today, women make up under a third of the workforce in science, technology, engineering, and maths. And when women are underrepresented in developing new technologies, discrimination may be baked in from the start. That is why we must close the digital divide and increase the representation of women and girls in science and technology. Women's exclusion from the digital world has shaved an estimated $1 trillion from the GDP of low and middle income countries in the last decade, a loss that could grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025 without action. Investing in women uplifts all people, communities and countries. Let us work together across governments, the private sector and civil society to build a more inclusive, just and prosperous world for women, girls, men and boys everywhere.
Greetings, my lovely people. I'm Chantel, residing in Taiwan. 12 hours time difference. It's nighttime here, morning time in SK. I'm busy and on the go. However, I always manage to keep up to date with what's happening in SK. All thanks to Good Morning SKN. Good morning SKN. Ciao, bango!
Welcome back to Good Morning SKN and happy International Women's Day once again as we continue now with regional news. This from Caribbean News Now. Dominica's northeast coast will see busy days ahead following the safe arrival of the heavy equipment for the construction of the island's first international airport. The vessel carrying the machinery reached Dominica shore Friday, and the offloading is expected to happen in the next few days. In a report by WIC News, the vessel delivered several pieces of equipment for construction and 44 massive containers holding necessary building materials for the billion-dollar airport project, including 2 cement mixer trucks, 1 truck, 11 tons of steel bars, 5 motor graders, 6 bulldozers, 2 forklifts, 12 roller compactors, and 16 excavators. In a tweet, Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit said that the arrival of the equipment is, and quote, a significant milestone in the development of the international airport, and it is an exciting feat to be a step closer to delivering a world-class facility, end quote. Officials involved in the development of the airport's construction were also elated at the progress that would jumpstart the airport, which has been put at a standstill for a very long time.
And on the international scene, this from CNN, millions of people in India and around the world are celebrating Holi this week. The Hindu festival of love, color, and spring is one of the most joyous celebrations of the year. It's a time when people don simple, inexpensive clothes and take to the streets to drench each other in clouds of colored powder and buckets of water. There's singing, dancing, and of course, food. This year's holiday falls on March 8th, but in some parts of India, communities begin the festivities by lighting bonfires the night before in a celebration known as Holika Dahan or Choti Holi. Once the bonfires have gone out, some Hindus smear the ashes on their bodies as a purifying ritual. Bonfires are a nod to one of the most well-known legends associated with the festival, the story about the triumph of good over evil.
Yeah.
Well, that brings the latest to an end for today, International Women's Day. We will be back in a moment with more Good Morning SKN. Stay tuned.
Dreamy Decor specializes in flowers for all events, from birthdays to weddings and any other special occasion. What's a better way to express to the people you love than by providing the finest selection of beautiful flowers and gifts? So when you think of flowers, think of us, Dreamy Decor.
Yeah.
An exotic experience.
No cash, no card, no problem. Dad, embrace.
In the digital age, our systems still perpetuate bias, inequality, and violence in the lives of women and girls. Technological progress is outpacing progress towards gender equality. This is not progress. On this International Women's Day, we make 4 calls. 1. Remove all barriers to access the digital world. 2. Educate and train women and girls in STEM. 3. Enable women to create tech that meets their needs. 4. Eliminate online gender-based violence. Today we power on to create an equal digital future for all.
Back to Good Morning SKN, and thank you for joining us today for our International Women's Day special here on Good Morning SKN. To continue our celebration of the contributions and influence of women worldwide, we will be highlighting a series of women who have changed the world. So do you know of any women that have changed the world? Me?
Do you?
Sure do. All right, so Ada Lovelace is a woman that changed the world. Wow. Ada Lovelace is a woman that changed the world. While Lovelace passed away long before the computer age, her skills in mathematical algorithms and analytical engineering bestowed upon her the title of the first computer programmer by many. Oh, never knew that.
I'm guessing that you're not alone.
I didn't hear you, sorry?
I said, I'm guessing that you're not alone.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's why I say we learn something new every day at Good Morning SKN.
Rosa Parks is also on the list. After refusing to give up her bus seat to a white person in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks' courageous act in 1955 sparked a turning point in the civil rights movement.
Yeah. I'd like to think everybody around the world knows Rosa Parks or should know about Rosa Parks. I hope Maya Angelou is on this list.
Well, there's one way to find out.
Who is it? Amelia Earhart is a woman that changed the world. Amelia Earhart is a woman that changed the world. Earhart soared to notoriety as the first female aviator to fly across the Atlantic Ocean alone.
Hilary Swank played her in a movie, Earhart, actually. Amelia Earhart.
Wow.
All right, Michelle Obama is also on that list.
Nice.
As the nation's first African-American First Lady of the United States, Mrs. Obama helmed many impactful initiatives, including the Let's Move campaign, which set out to combat childhood obesity.
Miss Obama, she contributed a lot, and she'll be one of those to go down in the history books as well. Oh, Mother Teresa is a woman that changed the world. She sure did. Mother Teresa is a woman that changed the world, or Mother Teresa, as we call her. The charitable figure is the prime example of sacrifice and strength. She inspired the world over with her kind heart, aiding those who needed it most. She sure did.
Althea Gibson, also another woman. She's on that list as well. With an impressive 11 Grand Slam title to her name, Gibson is the first African-American to have achieved the honor. The tennis pro was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 1971.
Frida Kahlo. Never heard of Frida Kahlo. Maybe I did, but I'm not sure. So Frida Kahlo, when an artist's work punctures popular culture and helps define a society, they are genuinely influential. Mexican artist Frida Kahlo is one of those creators. Her paintings explore topics of gender, class, and race in Mexican society. Hey, this is the first time I'm hearing of Miss Frida Kahlo.
Elizabeth Eckford, also on that list. Part of the Little Rock Nine, Eckford was one of the first black students to attend an all-white school. Her courageous act sparked the beginning of racial integration within the education system. Very important.
Yeah. I was listening to a story the other day where there were 4 other young girls that went to an all-white school, and boy, the adults were out there just being mean to them. They're all grown women now, so they were doing an interview the other day. I don't remember who, but I was actually surprised that people would be hollering at little kids that has nothing to do with what's going on in society. Malala Yousafzai. What do I pronounce that last name? The Nobel Peace Prize recipient is also the youngest ever to receive such honors. The human rights activist was shot by a Taliban gunman at age 18, but miraculously survived and continues the fight for female education. Wow.
That's a very important fight.
Wow.
I guess being shot at that age, under age of 15, definitely changed the course of her life in a meaningful way.
Yep. I almost thought she died until I read on. I'm like, wow. Those use that. Oh my, no, I'm not even gonna bother.
Hattie McDaniel. I know Hattie McDaniel. I know of Hattie McDaniel. Here we go. Hattie McDaniel was the first black actor to receive an Oscar, which she won in 1940 for her portrayal of the maid, Mammy, in Gone with the Wind.
Never heard of her until today.
Yes, Hattie McDaniel.
Okay.
There was talk about her portraying that role as if it were indicative that people of color would be in subservient roles. Nevertheless, she was an acclaimed actress.
Okay. And she's got an Oscar to prove it.
So these are the women that changed the world. We continue.
And this is Gertrude Elderly. What is she? So Gertrude Elderly, the adage woman, do it better, rang true in 1926 when Elderly became the first woman to swim the English Channel, beating out the men's record by 2 hours. So,
Guess she really proved that women do it better in some respects.
I guess because she beat them out by 2 hours. I guess that's where the better came from. She broke the record.
Gertrude.
Go Gertrude.
Indira Gandhi is also on that list. Gandhi was the first, and to this day is the only woman to serve as the Prime Minister of India. She led in periodic terms from 1960 until her tragic assassination in 1984.
Wow. So,
these are some of the women who changed the world as we mark International Women's Day. We'll be back in a moment with more GMS Scan. Stay tuned.
No cash, no card, no problem. Dad, embrace the freedom. No cash, no card, no problem. Dad, embrace the freedom.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate the achievements of women and girls across all walks of life in all corners of the world. But we also recognize the enormous obstacles they face, from structural injustices, marginalization, and violence to cascading crises that affect them first and worst, to denial of their personal autonomy and rights over their bodies and lives. Gender-based discrimination harms everyone, women, girls, men and boys. International Women's Day is a call to action. Actions to stand with women while demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost. Action to strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse. And action to accelerate women's full participation and leadership. This year's theme stresses the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality. Technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls, but it can also be used to amplify abuse and hatred. Today, women make up under a third of the workforce in science, technology, engineering and maths. And when women are underrepresented in developing new technologies, discrimination may be baked in from the start. That is why we must close the digital divide and increase the representation of women and girls in science and technology. Women's exclusion from the digital world has shaved an estimated $1 trillion from the GDP of low and middle income countries in the last decade, a loss that could grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025 without action. Investing in women uplifts all people, communities and countries. Let us work together across governments, the private sector and civil society to build a more inclusive, just and prosperous world for women, girls, men and boys everywhere.
No cash, no card, no problem. Dad, embrace the freedom.
Yo, what up? It's your boy and Richie right here at Studio 327. I'm here to give you the promo that you guys need because this is something special for St. Kitts. I'm telling you, tune in to Good Morning SKN, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and on Moment Channel 4. Also, I realize nobody else is doing this. Follow the Good Morning SKN Instagram at Good Morning SKN and the Studio 327 Inc. Instagram. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook. This is pretty long, but follow us and yeah.
It is International Women's Day. Oh my gosh. This annual event is geared towards celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women on an international scale. This day is a time to reflect on progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their countries and communities. This year, the aim of International Women's Day is to embrace equity and is being celebrated under the theme Digital, Innovation, and Technology for Gender Equality.
In recognition of this day, we have the pleasure of speaking with a group of dynamic women here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. They are Janelle Lake, Head of Network and Computer Systems Administration Unit at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ACCB, representing the digital economy. Tricia King, Marine Biologist in the Department of Marine Resources in St. Kitts and Nevis, here on behalf of the Blue Economy. And finally, but by no means least, Talca Daniel Wallace, President of the Limega Agricultural Cooperative Society, our representative for the green economy. Good morning, ladies. Welcome to Good Morning SKN again, and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. As we reflect on the theme for this year, and again, the theme is Digital, Innovation, and Technology for Gender Equality, I'd ask you to share the relevance of the theme to your particular fields. And Tricia, I'd like to start with you.
Okay. First of all, good morning, everyone. And what I love about the theme is when it says digital, it's really inclusive. And I remember specifically when I went to the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and we had to do simulations looking at how we can reduce our carbon emissions from ships. And I was just like, that is such a great experience, and that was such a great experience. And I think that was one thing that demonstrated that technology and innovation can occur across different sectors, and we really need to look at it and look at how women can really help to close the gap.
Right, you know?
Right, so I can't think of anything more equalizing than technology.
Yes.
I mean, if you only consider the impact that technology had on making sure that lives continued, work continued, children were able to continue to go to school, mothers were able to stay at home and make sure that the home was taken care of than during the pandemic. And I can't think of anything truly more equalizing from a gender perspective than technology. It has the ability to meet us exactly where we are. And so I think the theme for this year's Women's International Day, Digital, Innovation, and Technology for Gender Equality, is absolutely fitting.
In terms of the green economy, digital is very important, because as we came out of the pandemic, you realize the importance of food security within and as we came out of the pandemic. And technology played a key role in advancing farming and other green systems, because in order to be able to reach the benchmarks that you're hoping to achieve, you have to employ technology to look for seeds that are resistant to climate change. You have to employ technology to look at the systems that you need to give you the crops that are at the highest standard, that they can reach the highest market. And so I see technology as a very important tool for women of all ages and men as well. But today we are focusing on what it means for women in these markets.
Great stuff. So this theme was established due to the recognition that women have historically made untold contributions to the digital world. What are your thoughts on this? And I'll begin the talk this time.
Okay. My thoughts is that a lot of times women are left behind because women were never the bosses. I'm glad to see at the table here all women who are bosses, and women have contributed so much to all spheres of life. And when I look at the board that you were showing as we were waiting, I am in awe of the amount of women who have stepped forward and done so well in the area of technology. I would even tell you a little story about myself. When I went to work at Community and Social Development, I did typing and office practice, but I had never touched a computer. And as a result, I was somewhat marginalized. And then I heard that Youth Skill was doing a course on computers. And I walked all the back ways to go down to the Magnet Community Center and did it. And then the secretary asked me, Miss Wallace, you don't have anything you need to type? I said, not at this time, because that class helped. She taught me to use the computer and to be more self-sufficient. And so I would tell every woman, do not be afraid of venturing into technology, because it can only redound to your betterment.
I just want to add to that by saying that it's a little known fact that the first programmer way back when, many centuries ago, was a woman. Her name was Ada Lovelace.
Yes, we spoke about her earlier.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Ada Lovelace, the very first programmer. And it sounds like the story you told of your own experience with technology is a very real one. And I like to tell the story of my own life and how I got into technology. And it was just by virtue of the fact that my father had an old computer laying around at home, and my sister and I would use it to operate a doctor shop. And that was my first experience with technology. And from then, it sparked a curiosity. And essentially, just to wrap up, because I know we only have 15 minutes, because there's a whole story in there, but the rest is history. But it just goes to show what happens when you put tools in the hands of anyone. I wouldn't even say young people, because your experience, you were an adult, weren't you? So you put the tools in the hands of the young people and magic would happen. So I'm all for women exposing themselves to the technology, even with their apprehensions. And it sounds like you had some apprehensions that you had to overcome.
Yes,
and it served you in the end, ultimately. And it will continue to serve you, because that technology is... But I will let Tracy speak. I could go on.
Okay, some of the things that are really important. I'm reading this motivational book right now, and what was incredible is the way the author looked at technology as that mechanism that allowed her to actually operate in an open market. Right? So before, sometimes you have to know this person, you have to go this way, you have to be in this room, you have to be a man. That didn't matter anymore. What mattered is that she had the access to technology, and she was able to accomplish so much things. And I was just so motivated by that. And when I saw the theme this year, I was like, this is like, it's all coming together, because it is really great. Like, I don't think we think about it enough, but it's a really impactful tool for us to move forward.
Well, that segues into what I have to ask you now about your respective opinions about the importance of education in this digital age for achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. What are your thoughts on that? How important is education? Sure, Tracy.
So this year, I was speaking with somebody who's a high-ranking official for one of the Caribbean maritime, one of the maritime universities in the Caribbean, and I was telling her that we need to have more persons from St. Kitts and Nevis, from the Eastern Caribbean, at her university. And she said, "Okay, we'll work on it, and we'll get it done." And I was like, what? Because I didn't, I spoke boldly, but I didn't expect okay, yes, we'll get it. I didn't expect that response. And sometimes you just have to be bold, and you have to be in the room and be bold, and then things can happen. And so while we're working out all the logistics for that, if you have interest in the maritime sector, message me on Facebook, and so we can get a list of names of persons who are interested, so that we can be able to really leverage what we have here to be able to afford persons the opportunity to get scholarships.
No.
So as it relates to the curriculum and getting more technology in the curriculums in schools, or as I'm a huge proponent of this, I can't speak highly enough, I can't speak more passionately for this than I already do. I see the benefits, just as I mentioned, my own story is just one of simple exposure, just exposure made me want to pursue a career in technology. And I even see it here in the studio 327. I see all of my little friends from CFBC, all of the little IT students getting ready to take off into the world, become the next generation of IT professionals. And this is all based on some exposure that they had to technology. So especially as there are new and very attractive frontiers in technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, which we do a great deal of here in the Federation. The St. Kitts Nevis Robotics Association is really making waves. These are frontiers that we should really seek to get into as a federation, as they are still budding, and with technology being as far-reaching as it is, there's no reason why we can't integrate it into the curriculums right now. I mean, with the advent of the internet and with the ability to just connect wherever you are, there's no reason why we can't pursue that right now for the betterment of our future generations.
I would say that education in technology is key for the advancement of our federation. My granddaughter, she's now 16, and I realize that there is a lot of money in technology. You can earn big money if you learn what you need to learn and you become an entrepreneur, looking at making labels, just doing regular things that people don't want to trouble themselves to do. So as we're looking at entrepreneurship as a way forward, I mean, technology take you around the world without leaving home. And so and so I would promote that everywhere.
All right, so ladies, we're going to take a short commercial break and we will be right back with this engaging discussion. GMSKN Nation, stay tuned.
Dreamy Decor specializes in flowers for all events, from birthdays to weddings and any other special occasion. What's a better way to express to the people you love than by providing the finest selection of beautiful flowers and gifts? So when you think of flowers, think of us, Dreamy Decor.
In the digital age, our systems still perpetuate bias, inequality, and violence in the lives of women and girls. Technological progress is outpacing progress towards gender equality. This is not progress. On this International Women's Day, we make 4 calls. 1. Remove all barriers to access the digital world. 2. Educate and train women and girls in STEM. 3. Enable women to create tech that meets their needs. 4. Eliminate online gender-based violence. Today we power on to create an equal digital future for all.
Welcome back to Good Morning SKN as we continue celebrating International Women's Day by speaking with a group of 3 women representing various professionals, oh my God, yes, that word, here in the Federation of St. Kitts. I'm not even going to try, y'all. I'm being tongue-tied. So we have with us Janelle Lake. She's from the digital economy. My good friend Teresa King from the blue economy. And Telka Daniel Wallace from the green economy. I had to chuckle because apparently my blouse is blue and not purple. So ladies, how long have you been in your respective fields? And I will begin with Ms. Lake.
I have been in technology for a very long 11 years.
Okay.
A very long, a very rewarding 11 years. I've had the pleasure of working across 3 of the more popular veins within technology. Okay. So I've worked with applications, I've worked within cybersecurity, and I now work in network and computer systems. And I must say it has been a very rewarding and fruitful 11 years, and I wouldn't trade any of it for anything.
I can see that on your face. I can see that on your face. Miss Wallace?
Well, I have been a farmer all my life.
Okay.
I have flowers. I used to farm flowers, and my husband used to say they can't eat. But I have flowers that are like 20-something years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I recently ventured into farming, not by my choice. A group of guys came and attacked me and told me, Miss Wallace, you need to join our group. We need you. And I thought about it, and I had retired. That was like 2016. Okay. So I decided I would join up with them, and it has been a real eye-opener and a pleasure. I have a great respect for farmers because farming is very hard work. I have to tell you all, when I started and I done farm, I go home, and a few weeks after that I went to the doctor because I say something got to be wrong with me, I'm too tired, but over time it got better and easier, and they usually say, we don't expect you to work, you just there to make sure we do the right things, but I feel good when I contribute. And so I have been in it for about 8 years.
Okay.
All right. Yes, I was actually counting because I couldn't remember, but I think it's about 10 years now. Except I don't know. But some of the things that were really, really cool is that, like last year, I was awarded the International Women's Day, the National Blue Economy Award. And then a week after that, I was really surprised because then I was inducted into the Women's Gallery, Pioneering Gallery for first marine biologists, female marine biologists. And this Monday, I received an email, and so today I would be featured as an eco-feminist in the Caribbean by the Guyana Youth Environment Network. And so I was just like, oh my God, I didn't expect this. And it's like every time something happens, I'm like, okay, so you have to do something else, for that next thing. So it's been quite rewarding. Again, it's as dynamic as the ocean tide, and I would not change anything at all.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved. We've heard about your accomplishments. What can you two ladies in the front row here tell us about your greatest moments working in the field, your accomplishments?
Accomplishments wise, I feel really accomplished, as this is International Women's Day, seeing the growth in the number of women in the field, and I could attest to that. I see it, I live it. Central Bank has grown its complement of women in technology over the years. Mm-hmm. It's at a really nice place now. It's a really nice, almost balanced environment, but there's been significant growth, and that has been across both the permanent employees as well as interns. So we have a nice cadre of women in the field. So that it rates really highly on what I see as accomplishments. For myself, I mean, it's more than me. It's certainly more than me, but just that I get to live it and experience it, it feels like an accomplishment. Other accomplishments, I mean, every day you put something new into action, you know? So there are too many to mention, but just being able to be a part of something that gets into production, that gets to change lives, makes operations improved, those things are really tremendous accomplishments. I feel really proud that I get to be a part of that every day.
Great, as you should. Mrs. Wallace.
In terms of the farming sector, in November of last year, we planted some watermelon slips, you know, and I thought we would get maybe 30 or 40 watermelon, you know, and I would have been happy because, and we got so much watermelon that I was in shock. I was in shock. In one setting, we sold over 3,000 pounds of watermelon and cantaloupe too.
You did what?
Yes.
Wow.
We did.
Congratulations.
That's great.
Yes. And it served to motivate the team that they're planting like crazy people right now. Which is a great accomplishment because we have 2 workers from this step and you have to always be monitoring them. But when they saw, and what we did, we gave them a portion of the crop for themselves. So it motivates when you see something productive come to that kind of level. It motivates everyone to do more and do better.
So ladies, we have spoken about the accomplishments. Have you all recognized a push towards making this field, your respective fields, more gender inclusive?
I'll go first. So I'm a product of mentorship, right? And I've been mentored by males and females. I call them my male allies. And I've been able to mentor others. So we have about 8 persons right now who are studying marine biology at the university degree, and I make sure I stay in contact with them and connected to them. Sometimes I don't even need to. They would send me like full voice notes, like 3 minutes long, about after a class that has been so inspiring, or after an engagement with different fishers from a different side of the world, and it's been so dynamic and incredible. Remember the last time I had the president of the St. Kitts Nevis Reef Guardians. That's a group that I mentor as well, and they have males and females, and so we're really pushing and we're really being as inclusive as possible, and it's incredible because you want more persons to swim in this field.
I like that. I know for me, there's been a definite push to get more inclusivity in technology. I mean, the fact that I'm here on the show this morning, I've been on other forums, participating, trying to encourage women. Just being visible, because you know you can't be what you can't see, and so I'm seeing, just by virtue of the fact that I see more and more opportunities for women to stand up and be counted and be represented as women in technology. Inviting the Federation speaks volumes for the push that we are, you know, we're really trying to push and encourage women to join the field. It's not just the men, it's not for men only. Try to break down the stereotypes, and so I could definitely attest to that.
I would say in terms of the green economy, more women are driven towards farming because of the fact, I mean, even coming out of COVID, you look at the backyard gardening that people have been promoting, and you look at the general trend of trying to feed yourself and being responsible. Responsible meaning you do not put chemicals on your food. As a matter of fact, our farm is organic, and so it's labor intensive, and in that way you encourage more women to, even if you're not in the big farming kind of industry, you do it within your community or in your yard. You know, you try to feed yourself as much as possible, because when I eat food from the farm, I feel like I'm eating gold. Yes, definitely. Definitely. I put in, and it encourages you to eat more vegetables as well, and make it part of your everyday life, without going to the supermarket. Because when you go to the supermarket, you get goods, but you don't know what you're eating. But when you eat it from your farm, you know exactly what you put into it. And so you can eat it with confidence.
Yes.
I love that. I will
Confidence
never
in
forget
food security.
what it must feel like to eat gold. All right, so we are almost out of time, but I do want to give each of you a final word to women, to men, anyone watching, as to the significance of International Women's Day and any words of advice that you would give to them. Let's start with you, Janelle.
So I can't say enough about the significance of International Women's Day, because it feels like every day is Man's Day, you know. So it's every day feels like International Men's Day. So I'm glad that women get a day to celebrate themselves, their accomplishments, and to encourage future women to come up. And I just want to encourage future women who are considering a career in technology to remember that wherever you go, there you are. So wherever you find yourselves, you will be right there. So always put your best foot forward, always bring your best self.
Like that.
I like the theme for this year, which is called the digital.
Yeah.
And I would encourage all women, not just farming women, but all women, to learn as much as possible about technology, because it can only be better for you in moving your process forward.
She said.
This morning I was actually talking with my friend Tamara, she's the president of UMAC, and we were talking about how much things that we are doing and how much things that we are pushing, and I said, we are creating opportunities for future leaders, and that's our role right now, to really create those opportunities and those linkages for future leaders, for future women to move forward in whatever sector. But of course I want them to be in the maritime or marine sector, but whatever sector you choose to be a leader in.
Alrighty.
Well, we thank you so much for your time again. Happy International Women's Day. Great conversation. Sorry we had to cut it short.
That's okay.
But you know what? We need a part 2, so maybe sometime soon. Thank you so much. More GMSKN in a moment.
Greetings, my lovely people. I'm Chantel, residing in Taiwan. 12 hours time difference. It's nighttime here, morning time in SK. I'm busy and on the go. However, I always manage to keep up to date with what's happening in SK. All thanks to Good Morning SKN. Good morning SKN. Ciao bango.
In the digital age, our systems still perpetuate bias, inequality, and violence in the lives of women and girls. Technological progress is outpacing progress towards gender equality. This is not progress. On this International Women's Day, we make 4 calls. 1. Remove all barriers to access the digital world. 2. Educate and train women and girls in STEM. 3. Enable women to create tech that meets their needs. 4. Eliminate online gender-based violence. Today we power on to create an equal digital future for all.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate the achievements of women and girls across all walks of life in all corners of the world. But we also recognize the enormous obstacles they face, from structural injustices, marginalization and violence, to cascading crises that affect them first and worst, to denial of their personal autonomy and rights over their bodies and lives. Gender-based discrimination harms everyone, women, girls, men and boys. International Women's Day is a call to action. Actions to stand with women while demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost. Action to strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse. And action to accelerate women's full participation and leadership. This year's theme stresses the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality. Technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls, but it can also be used to amplify abuse and hatred. Today, women make up under a third of the workforce in science, technology, engineering and maths. And when women are underrepresented in developing new technologies, discrimination may be baked in from the start. That is why we must close the digital divide and increase the representation of women and girls in science and technology. Women's exclusion from the digital world has shaved an estimated $1 trillion from the GDP of low and middle income countries in the last decade, a loss that could grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025 without action. Investing in women uplifts all people, communities and countries. Let us work together across governments, the private sector and civil society to build a more inclusive, just and prosperous world for women, girls, men and boys everywhere.
Representing Good Morning SKN. We say good vibes, good energy, blessings and love. Voice rated.
Yesterday, the Mercedes-Benz organization released a video commemorating International Women's Day entitled, "Be One of Many." This video takes an interesting stance on the topic of women and firsts. Let's have a look.
The camera.
This is what it looks like to be exceptional, to stand out from the crowd, to make history. But what if women didn't have to be exceptional? What if they didn't have to be the first, the best, or the only woman? What if being a female engineer wasn't remarkable? What if women and men could compete as equals? I don't want to make history. I don't want to be the only woman. I want to be one of many.
Wow, so she doesn't want to be the only one, she wants to be one of many. And that makes clear sense to me, because once that one person would have passed on, then who carries on the legacy? So that is so clear. We need to have more women in certain roles. And I guess that's why the theme for this year, the digital, really makes sense, because a lot of us are still afraid of technology, as we know, and some of the older generations, they don't know much about it. So I really think that we should have some form of how should I say it? Or some form of vocational training, like they now have the elderly daycare. So for the elderly who don't know how to operate a computer, we can teach them how to turn it on, maybe how to navigate around, you know, the little simple things. So everybody is included in the digital generation.
It's interesting to me that this stance is taken, because as we discuss it in the context of International Women's Day, I know when we did the show last year, and even today in previous segments, we were looking at the first woman to do this, the first woman to do that. I remember having a brief conversation with a staffer here when I asked a question about something else related to men. It was said to me, well, they're not the first, women are. And when you look at it through that lens, you realize that to some degree we might be talking about these accomplishments as exceptional for women because they are the first, to normalize those achievements so that we're not looking at the first as being exceptional. It shouldn't be an accomplishment to be the first, it should be normal. And I guess that's what the Mercedes-Benz video is attempting to do, to normalize the achievements of women so that it doesn't stand out as exceptional or extraordinary. It's just what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I appreciated in the video was the young men and women on the chessboard when they were competing as equals.
Yes.
I know nothing else. I see the reality that other people experience, but I know nothing else but equality when it comes to that. So it's not that I can't appreciate the struggles that women go through, but to me, I suppose I can't understand why environments would seem to allow such behavior of discrimination to thrive in relation to that. Because as I said to you before, most of my teachers were women.
Yep.
And that's not to say, and we have this thing that we're doing here where we like to look at professions and effectively say, well, that's a woman's job or that's a man's job. We tend to do that. And even when we, you know, are employed with same professions, what we're doing effectively is we're still struggling with the pay. There's a pay gap. There's a gender pay gap, which doesn't make much sense to me, because if you're performing the job, then why is there a pay gap that seemingly is justified by putting the word gender in front of it?
Yes.
You know.
Funny you would mention the pay gap. And I know this is not in St. Kitts, but it's in the world. The WNBA and the NBA. There is a big difference in the pay. And that's why most of the female players go overseas to make the extra to ensure that they have the same salary that the gentleman would make being home in the US time.
I'm mindful that there are some variables, so I'll encourage you to, if you can, listen to a clip of Don Lemon explaining what might account for those differences, because it's not just gender. Although we tend to look at it through, you know, that lens sometimes, there might be more informing those things. But that being said, when we look at different professions, from racing to science to CEO, those positions that women hold, women are still the exception. And I said to you before, I don't think that women should be the exception. Although I do need to ask you as a woman why it is that we talk about those things as great achievements if we don't want them to be the exception. So help me understand that. I can't say to disconnect because it's something to be celebrated, but at the same time, it's celebrated so much that it seems like you should pay attention to the exception and not make it part of the rule.
Because as we know, certain roles were just for males. So the fact that women are included and feel inclusive right now, that's why they say we're shattering the ceiling. Because I'm trying to get one profession that was totally male that is now female.
As you think about that, I'm asking you that because I'm asking if we're not continuing that discussion along the lines of, you know, things being exceptional by heralding it as, well, you're a woman and you're the first, as opposed to you're the CEO, who happens to be a woman.
Because those roles were not for women. They were strictly men. So the fact that a woman is now in a position that a man once held is a grand feat.
And don't worry, I get you. I'm just asking about whether we're more concerned about the gift wrap than the actual gift. Because we're wrapping it in, you are the first woman, as opposed to you are the CEO who happens to be a woman, and we're celebrating that.
I think we celebrated both ways, but I think the fact that we celebrate the gift wrap a lot more than just recognizing that, okay, she's the CEO. Yeah, we were excited about that. Like, oh, it's a woman. So yeah, I think most of us get excited about that.
And that causes it to be exceptional, as opposed to perhaps being normalized.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking for, the perspective.
I agree with that.
Not saying that you shouldn't celebrate it.
No.
Just asking about the perspectives in relation to that, and what would make it seem normal as opposed to abnormal or exceptional if we cloak it that way.
Yeah.
All right.
But we like things wrapped up, so that's why. So when we open it and it's a big surprise,
But should it be? And that's the question.
It shouldn't. And that's what I said. We celebrate both ways. It shouldn't be. But the fact that a woman did it, it becomes a big thing because it wasn't a normal thing.
I guess. I understand what you're saying. No, I don't disagree with it at all. It's just that in the context of the video, that's why I put the question to you. I'm not saying it's right or wrong either way. I'm just saying if we want to make things appear less exceptional, then it might be that the way that we wrap our messaging, you know, the way that we tailor our messaging should be done in a way that it doesn't seem to be as exceptional, because it should be more normal than exceptional. So that's where I'm going with it. Well, again, it is time. It is time. I think you should say that.
So it is time women are no longer the exception, but surrounded by many other women. And as I mentioned, and as I said before, it doesn't make sense for just one person to do this and for others not to aspire, as we spoke to the ladies earlier. So it shouldn't be, we had the first woman in technology, but now we have trillions of other, or probably millions. Let me stay calm for a minute. Let's say thousands and millions. I'm going to stay there. I'm not going to go to trillions yet, that are following in her footsteps in the technological field. So yeah, it's about time. It is about time. So what do you think?
As I said before, these things are new to me in terms of understanding people's realities, and not new in the sense that I didn't know that they existed, but my own reality was not to disparage people because of their gender. So I didn't understand that I didn't understand how it came to be such a thing in our sphere. And even as I live now, I still don't see it that way. And so anything that we can do to normalize what we treat as exceptions in relation to women and their development needs to be done.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we take a break and we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
no cash, no card, no problem. Dad, embrace the freedom.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate the achievements of women and girls across all walks of life in all corners of the world. But we also recognize the enormous obstacles they face, from structural injustices, marginalization, and violence to cascading crises that affect them first and worst, to denial of their personal autonomy and rights over their bodies and lives. Gender-based discrimination harms everyone, women, girls, men, and boys. International Women's Day is a call to action. Actions to stand with women while demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost. Action to strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse. And action to accelerate women's full participation and leadership. This year's theme stresses the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality. Technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls, but it can also be used to amplify abuse and hatred. Today, women make up under a third of the workforce in science, technology, engineering, and maths. And when women are underrepresented in developing new technologies, discrimination may be baked in from the start. That's why we must close the digital divide and increase the representation of women and girls in science and technology. Women's exclusion from the digital world has shaved an estimated $1 trillion from the GDP of low and middle income countries in the last decade, a loss that could grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025 without action. Investing in women uplifts all people, communities, and countries. Let us work together across governments, the private sector, and civil society to build a more inclusive, just, and prosperous world for women, girls, men, and boys everywhere.
Dreamy Decor specializes in flowers for all events, from birthdays to weddings and any other special occasion. What's a better way to express to the people you love than by providing the finest selection of beautiful flowers and gifts? So when you think of flowers, think of us, dreamy decor.
Our International Women's Day special continues as we introduce our next guest to highlight women within the credit union movement and women as heads of organizations within the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. We are honored to welcome Ms. Melissa Edwards Booton. She is the General Manager of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Cooperative League Limited. Denise Garfield is the General Manager of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions, and Charmaine Bodley, Sales and Branch Manager at the Kuna Caribbean Insurance, OECS Limited. Good morning, ladies, and welcome to Good Morning SKN.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Oh, our pleasure indeed. So I am going to start off right away. Your current position, your degrees, and your journey to get where you all are presently. Melissa?
Sure. Well, my background is actually in civil engineering. So I am a graduate of the Bastia High School. And after that, I had made up in my mind that, I want to be a civil engineer. So I attended the University of Miami and then completed my bachelor's at Texas A&M after transferring there, and went on to actually do a master's in civil engineering to get more training in geotechnical engineering, which is another specialty. From there, I entered the career field in the US, where I worked on many different projects that utilized my degrees very well. But over time, the interest that I wanted to explore, which was finance, and I took time away from my engineering career to explore working in the financial field. At the same time, I started the journey to cross-train and pursue education in advanced financial planning. And as part of that journey, of course, I'm here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I returned home and I explored working in the finance field, and I'm here today at the St. Kitts League, St. Kitts and Nevis National League.
Congratulations on your achievements. Ms. Denise?
Well, my journey started 23 years ago with the credit union sector in Jamaica. About probably 15, 17 years ago. I was at the Jamaica League, basically doing different things. Started out as a research analyst, then went on to business development, then went on to corporate planning, events planning, and my journey now is with the General Manager, Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions.
Nice. And Ms. Charmaine, your turn.
Yes, so I started my career in banking over 24 years ago. I started at the Bank of St. Lucia back home. I started as the clerk typist and moved up through the ranks. I left in 2019 as the assistant manager of operations. I joined the Bank of Nevis in 2019 as the operations manager. And subsequent to that, I felt I needed to diversify my career. Been in banking, I've done so much, and I got the opportunity to become the sales and branch manager of insurance. So even now when I tell persons insurance, they're like, wow, transition, total 360. And I said yes. And I believe it will have me get to a place where I'm more marketable, I'm more well-rounded, because I have the banking, I have the finance, and now I'm into sales, which we do daily, but as a career, I'm into sales. These things were made possible through my education. I have my bachelor's in banking and finance, and I have my master's in finance. So now I'm transitioning to sales.
Well accomplished, ladies. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so we've talked about your journey. I'm curious to know what you consider to be the most, let's say, important accomplishments or achievements as you look back on your journeys. Let's start with you, Melissa.
I think I'm still working on that pinnacle, but so far on my journey, I would say, you know, my accomplishments so far, or what I reflect on, is just, I guess, tuning into my own desires to not be locked into one career, and recognize that the skills that I have in a very technical field, you know, can transition and can position me to contribute, you know, to the finance sector and the credit union movement.
So no limits.
Yes.
All right, and Lady Denise.
Jenny, let me tell you. I guess having been in the sector for over 20 odd years, I've seen the growth right across the Caribbean. I didn't actually see myself as a general manager 7 years ago, but basically I think the accomplishment for me was that we, right here in St. Kitts, when we had our headquarters built, that was a major accomplishment for the entire credit union sector in the Caribbean. We struggled, you know, to basically get funding, and we were able to accomplish that after, I think it was about probably 10 years that we struggled. But I think that was one of my major accomplishments, and to see the institution grow. You know, as an individual now, I would say that my journey was good. Never had any challenges per se. Pretty much a stable background, you know, good mentors. I always believe in women supporting women. I didn't have that probably in my early stages while in my early professional life. And as such, I made it a duty to ensure that all women who report to me or work with me, that they excel.
Oh, that's so great and noble. How do you follow that?
Okay, apart from my two lovely kids, who are my greatest accomplishments, continue to make me proud. I would say my main accomplishment is just setting goals, not being stagnant, looking for something always bigger and better. And when those goals are set, achieving it. And I've done so, as previously said, in a lot of areas in my professional and personal life.
So, Ms. Sherman, I'll continue with you. So we're going to speak on what significance this day has for you, and I will also ask that you incorporate the theme, which is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality.
National Women's Day is, of course, very important to me as a woman who has gone through some challenges, not many, but throughout life, everybody has their challenges, whether personal or professional. And it's a day set aside where women could be recognized, recognizing the fields that we are, the fields that we would like to be part of, and also we see a lot of areas. I mean, in most of my employment, I see a lot of managers being women, and I am pleased to see that, to see we are at the helm and we can make decisions for the future. We're not setting aside the men, but we are saying we are here also, and we could provide the same support and the same guidance that you can. And so this is very important that we are here as three professional women who have accomplished our goals, and we are ready to serve. And as it relates to digital and the theme, for me, I'm very keen on having digital parts of our economy and everything that we do. But I would like to see some more women. I noticed the three ladies before us. I was very pleased to hear them and see that we have that goal and we are getting there. But even with digital media, with technology, IT, we still see the men dominating. Again, we don't want to bash them, we don't want to step on them, but we want to be part and inclusive. Yes. And that's what I want to see more of us get into that field. Thank you.
Denise?
Well, interestingly, at my organization, I encourage all the youngsters. We have a lot of youngsters within the movement. and I encourage them that they must use technology, they must be familiar with it. But I think based on where we are globally, I think it won't be that much of a challenge for women. I think we are more inclusive than we were centuries ago, decades ago. And I think the reality is that there's recognition of such, and it is just for us to hone it. And I think with that, we basically can effectively achieve what we want to achieve.
Can you repeat the question? Okay, so the significance of the day, and speak a little bit on what the theme means to you as well.
Okay. So I think International Women's Day is significant and an opportunity not only to celebrate women's accomplishments, but their needs and the path that they still need to chart. As far as the theme, I think it is very relevant to today, even in our sector, the credit union sector, and the financial sector more broadly. We are kind of at a crossroads where we are moving forward to try to transform digitally. We've seen leadership from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We've seen the digital EC dollar. This is a path forward, for women and for all our citizens. In particular, when it comes to women, there are unique challenges that we face. We make up a large percentage of the working population, and having digital transformation and tools when it comes to finances, I think will empower women even more. Whether it's the person who is a vendor or people working 9 to 5, having those digital tools in the financial space will only empower women more.
I like that. Indeed.
Well said. We'll be back in a moment to continue this discussion. Stay tuned, everyone.
In the digital age, our systems still perpetuate bias, inequality, and violence in the lives of women and girls. Technological progress is outpacing progress towards gender equality. This is not progress. On this International Women's Day, we make 4 calls. 1. Remove all barriers to access the digital world. 2. Educate and train women and girls in STEM. 3. Enable women to create tech that meets their needs. 4. Eliminate online gender-based violence. Today we power on to create an equal digital future for all.
No cash, no card, no problem. Dad, embrace the freedom.
Let's see it.
An exotic experience.
Welcome back to Good Morning SKN. We are continuing our discussion with Melissa Edwards-Boutin, General Manager of St. Kitts and Nevis National Cooperative League Limited, Denise Garfield, General Manager of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions, and Sherman Bodley, Sales and Branch Manager at Kuna Caribbean Insurance OECS Limited. Again, thank you for joining us, ladies, as we continue to discuss some very important topics on this very important day. There is an elephant in the room sometimes when we talk about successful women, professional women. And I have to ask you now, if being a professional woman, if you've ever encountered any challenges, have you been discriminated against? Did you feel that way because of your gender? And if so, how did you deal with that? Charmaine.
I would say not that I know, but if I had to experience it, similar to any other challenges where you have to overcome something, because the stigma may not necessarily be being a female, but could be for some other reason. I would simply basically show what I have to offer and ensure that the other person or persons realize, hey, it's not because she's a woman, it's not because she's black, it's not because she's a foreigner, but she's able to provide and commit to the point at hand. And that's how I would deal with it.
I can appreciate that. Ms. Denise?
Can I say that I've never experienced that. I've heard about it, I have, but I've not experienced it in my 20-odd years.
I'm grateful that you haven't, by the way.
Yes, I haven't.
Melissa?
So to my mind, I haven't been discriminated because of my gender, being a woman. However, I would say being a woman in a profession, and I have been, and I am in a male-dominated, both engineering and finance, navigating it as a woman is different when you are in sectors that are very male-dominated for many years, before my grandmother's time coming to present. There's a male-centric kind of work culture that you're entering sometimes, and because of that history, it may not be direct, at the women employees or engineers or finance person, but that culture doesn't really think about how do women fit in, how do they socially fit into our social activities, or a practice of maybe promoting based on those male relationships more so than looking at a measurable performance. Those are some of the things that I have witnessed as a woman in a professional career. And those are things that women who are navigating their own career should be aware of, and reach out to get mentored and have sponsors and people who can help them navigate it. You know, we can't change it individually, but we can recognize it and find a way to navigate it.
I like that.
I think I'd like to add to that. I think the Caribbean credit union movement and globally, the credit union movement is about helping people helping people. I think because of our core values and our principles also, you find that that discrimination doesn't exist because of our principles. I would say though that at the board level, we still have that balance to get to in terms of male-female, but generally I would say that across the Caribbean movement that we have a lot of female general managers, a lot of female employees, and that discrimination I would say doesn't exist because of our main principles. At the global level, we also have Global Women's Leadership Network, where women are able to tap into that network to assist them, to help them to grow, etc. But I think because of our principles as a credit union sector, right here in the Federation, we have 3 women of the 4 credit unions, 3 are headed by women. And we as 3 supporting organizations also help them to achieve their goals.
Glad that you added that bit. Really does give a better perspective to the reality here.
So with that said, Ms. Garfield, do you think there are enough women in leadership roles here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
We have the rose among the thorns, which is Nevis. No disrespect to Sydney, but basically, yes, we have 3 very strong women that head the credit union movement. Ms. Dawn Williams, as you know, well, they would have been here, but unfortunately they had other engagements. Ms. Dawn Williams, who is head of First Federal Credit Union, Melissa Phillips, who is at Police Credit Union, Janet Harris, who is at St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union. So I would say yes, definitely we have that balance.
Your perspective from the Caribbean, perhaps?
Caribbean, as Dennis has mentioned, yes, I believe we do have that balance. We probably still have a long way to go, but we're getting there. The women have realized the potential, and they're now placing themselves in the roles and accepting the roles. Again, previously, persons would have said CEOs and chairmen of board would be male-dominated. And a woman may shy away from that, but right now you're seeing the women taking up the challenge and placing themselves in those positions. As it relates to St. Kitts, for the short time I've been here and of what you have heard, I believe we are getting there. Like Dennis said, the credit union sector, we could see it here. The banks, we need to touch more on there. We do have our first female governor general, so that is good, and that's the helm. Yeah. So I guess from that, we could see that we are able. So maybe the next police commissioner, like back home, will be a female. Yeah.
Alyssa, anything to add?
So I'm still waiting on the first female prime minister. That's what I would add.
That's next. Up next.
I love that. Well, you know, we want to thank you for coming. Unfortunately, our time has to be cut short, but not because there's not more to discuss. So hopefully there'll be other opportunities to discuss with you some very pertinent issues, which I'm sure our viewers can appreciate. Thank you so much for joining us today, and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
Yes. You're welcome.
More Good Morning SKN in a moment. Stay tuned.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate the achievements of women and girls across all walks of life in all corners of the world. But we also recognize the enormous obstacles they face, from structural injustices, marginalization, and violence to cascading crises that affect them first and worst, to denial of their personal autonomy and rights over their bodies and lives. Gender-based discrimination harms everyone, women, girls, men and boys. International Women's Day is a call to action, actions to stand with women while demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost, action to strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse, and action to accelerate women's full participation and leadership. This year's theme stresses the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality. Technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls, but it can also be used to amplify abuse and hatred. Today, women make up under a third of the workforce in science, technology, engineering, and maths. And when women are underrepresented in developing new technologies, discrimination may be baked in from the start. That is why we must close the digital divide and increase the representation of women and girls in science and technology. Women's exclusion from the digital world has shaved an estimated $1 trillion from the GDP of low and middle income countries in the last decade, a loss that could grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025 without action. Investing in women uplifts all people, communities and countries. Let us work together across governments, the private sector and civil society to build a more inclusive, just and prosperous world for women, girls, men and boys everywhere.
Welcome back to Good Morning SKN. It is International Women's Day, and we're celebrating it in grand style because we're going overtime to bring you an interview with the Governor General, Dame Marcella Liburd. So, yes, definitely so. And by way of introduction, St. Kitts, like other countries in the world, has made unprecedented advances as it relates to establishing gender equity on an international scale. So for the first time in history, St. Kitts has the highest number of women in the National Assembly. Earlier in the news, we mentioned that the percentage is up to 30%. And Hortensia?
Yes. So in addition to this, we also currently have the first female Governor General here in the Federation. In an interview with Her Excellency Dame Marcella Liburd, she enlightened us on her rise to this position, as well as other highlights in her career and the precedent set by her loving mother, Miss Anne Liburd. Happy International Women's Day to all, and we do hope this interview serves as a source of inspiration to you. Enjoy.
Alrighty, so what was it like being a woman studying law back then?
There were many women studying law at the time that I went into KFL to do law. At that time, I think women were already moving up and thinking that a woman's place is not just in the home. Also, of course, many women are seeking independence. And so you find that there were many women studying law in my class while I was there, you know. So it wasn't like a male thing, you know. I think it was very much mixed.
I'm curious to know what inspired you to pursue law.
As when I taught before I did law, I went to university to pursue a degree which majored in English before I did law. And I had a brother who was a lawyer. I had two brothers who were lawyers, but one in particular, Fitzroy Bryant, who you probably heard about. He kept saying, you got to do law, you got to do law. And so he really is the one who was sort of pushing me to go and do law. And in the end, I just decided, okay, I'm gonna go. So it was mainly like, you know, he wanted me to do law. Not that I was opposed to doing law, but I think it is his push that really got me thinking maybe I should really go and pursue law. So I did.
So did you have another career in mind other than being a lawyer if Mr. Bryant didn't push you towards that career?
I don't think so. So that's what I'm saying. I think I didn't have that big ambition to be a lawyer. Okay. I was quite comfortable being a teacher actually. But he's the one who said, you know, you need to go and do law. We have a whole firm here and so on, you need to go and do law. So in the end, I did.
Your teaching career, Your Excellency, spanned about 18 years. during that time, were there any notable students that you taught?
There's so many that I don't even know where to begin. Because I taught at the Basse High School, and then I went to the Cairn High School. So I taught at both those high schools for a number of years. And I taught, right now, so many of them would come to me and say, you remember when you taught me Basse High School, or when you taught me in Cairn High School? Yeah, so many of them that I taught. If I just think off the top of my head to see if I could remember so many of these people that I taught. There's a gentleman who just recently retired. He was in charge of prisons. James, I taught him. I know him as Trumper, as you know. But I taught him, for example, you know. I taught Dr. Cameron Wilkinson in sixth form, though. I taught sixth form at the time, and he was one of the persons in that class. I remember I taught Anthony Johnson, blessed memory. He too was one of those people in that sixth form that time when I taught general papers, was called GP at that time. So I could span nearly all the professions here now, right? But I'm really very proud of the students generally to see where they are today. I'm generally very proud of them.
I went to school too late. So other than what you would have mentioned, do you have any other highlights in your teaching career before we move on?
No, I think I just enjoyed the interaction with the students, and being able to help them was really my satisfaction at the end of the day, especially those who are struggling. Because normally people always talk about who bite and who this, and I always say those people who allegedly bite will pass. They don't even need you, some of them, right? But it's these who have issues, and who, when you get those to write the exam and pass, then you know you're doing something. Yes. And that was really my satisfaction.
You'd have been a great mentor for me in the classroom. Again, we came here too late. Right. I want to focus now, Your Excellency, on your time as an attorney. Let's talk about your admission to, as a barrister and solicitor for the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in 1994. What were some of those highlights?
If I recall, the day I was admitted, it was a little bit nervous, a little bit, because all of the training and so on that you have is mainly books, you know, that you read and you write exams and so on. And then you go to law school. I went to Norman Manley in Jamaica, and you get some practice. You go to court and see how the lawyers function and so on. But then when you have to do it yourself, that's a completely different thing. And so it was a little bit at first, but like everything else, after a while you get the hang of it. And then because I had my brothers in the office, that also helped tremendously, because they'll be there to encourage you, they'll be there to support you, they'll be there to point out certain things to you. So that helped a lot, you know. So it was a journey, one that I enjoyed. So I'll encourage any young person who wants to pursue the law that they should, because it is very useful, even if you don't end up being a lawyer. But I have so many lawyers in my family now because my son is now a lawyer. And I didn't tell him to be a lawyer. When he was going to CFBC here, I actually told him to do law, and he said, no, I'm not going to do any law because you just want me to do law because you're a lawyer. And I said, no, I want to do what you want. So he didn't do law up at CFBC. You know, and he went off to the States and did a degree in finance. And I thought, great, you know. And then he started to work, you know, here and there. And then he said, I think, Mommy, I think I'm going to do law? I said, really? He said, yes. So I just encouraged him. Yeah, he's now found a job at a very good firm in New York, and I'm just encouraging him all the way. Then I have a nephew who came here, and he also did law. Yeah. So he lives in Germany, but he works for a very prestigious law firm in Germany. So I met it in the blood, maybe.
I think it is.
Most lawyers and doctors I find get into politics. Why did you get into politics?
It's a good question. For one thing, I would tell you that it was not one of my ambitions to be going to run for office, put it this way. It was certainly not one of my ambitions. But if you know my family was always involved in politics, always. So I grew up in it, right? And so I tell people all the time that the biggest politician I know was my mother, right? I don't know, you might know her, but she used to write a board, a blackboard that's attached to Massey's house, right? A board is still there, but nobody writes it now. But every day, she'd leave home with a paper, and before she go with the paper, she write whatever she gonna say. She said, "May I check this for me?" She's checking for the English, right? "Check this for me," so I'll check it. And she chalk, and she write the board, right? Every day. It became a tourist site. Tourists would stop, take pictures of the board, take pictures of her writing the board, write what she did. And I remember distinctly, at that time, ECCB, what is now ECCB, was ECHO, and Eastern Caribbean Central Authority, changed to bank now, and their offices were directly opposite Massey's house. That building on the exact opposite side of Massey's house. And one day, I met the then governor, which was Sir Dwight Venner, and he called me, and he said, "That lady is your mom?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "She comes every day and write the board." And he said, "Whenever I have my coffee break, I go by the window to read what's the latest on the board, right?" And he said, "You know what I call her?" I said, "What?" He said, "The leader of the opposition."
You mentioned your mother, and I don't know. I actually had the pleasure of meeting your mother and interacting with her quite a few times, and I can actually, I can paint the picture for you because she was a bundle of life from what I remember, and I probably wasn't any more than 10 years old at the time, when she passed, but I do remember those interactions and cherish them a lot. I could actually paint the picture for you of her store and the layout that she had. You know where that is. It's pretty close to where the office is, and so on. So when you talk about her, there's an image that I have, and I guess I can personify some of those traits if I look at her, asking you now, what about her inspired you to lead the life that you had?
Everything. She was the most courageous person I know. Nothing daunted her. And when I say courageous, not just in what she does, but what she says. I never agreed with everything she said, but you can't stop her from saying it. And she said to anybody, the king, the queen, the prime minister, the person cleaning the drain, it does not matter. So, and that is how she was. She was very friendly, she was very warm, she helped a lot of people, but she was definitely a courageous woman. And she took on the promotion of women, and as we approach International Women's Day, I always remember her, because she, to me, was the pioneer who advocated for women's rights, for women's empowerment. I don't know anybody before her who did that. She took on that. She became the president of CARIWA, which is the Caribbean Women's Association. She was the president of Toastmasters in St. Kitts because she said women have to learn to speak properly. So she was in Toastmasters. She was the person who represented a trade union women here in St. Kitts. Any women's organization that you could think about, she was the person who was carrying it right here in St. Kitts. And one of the projects she had that stayed with me, she had a project called Learn to Earn. And she said, And one project she had that stayed with me, she had a project called Learn to Earn. And she said in her trips around the country, she saw so many women in
special edition of Good Morning SKN as we celebrate International Women's Day. And to those of you out there who are of that gender, happy International Women's Day from all of us here. Of course, we're inviting you to tune into our website for the full interview with the Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Marcella Liebert. That will be available on the platforms that I will share with you in a moment. Of course, we're inviting you to tune in daily as well, where you'll find a little bit of everything for everyone and get your friends and family members to watch if you can. Good Morning SKN, as I've said before, is also being aired on TVC on the Tele TV network in St. Martin. So tell your friends and family to tune in. I feel like I've said that before, but yeah, it bears repeating. Tune into TVC on Tele TV network. And remember to follow us on our social media platforms where you'll get the full interview with the Governor General. They are Facebook and YouTube at Studio 327 Inc. That's the handle. On Instagram at Studio 327 Inc. And it is also at Good Morning SKN, the name of the show, Good Morning SKN. So like, subscribe, follow, and share, and check out our website at studio327inc.com to learn more about GMSKN and Studio 327. Hortensia will tell you, I suppose, what we have coming up later in the week.
Yes, so on Caribbean, the Connections, we have, what was his name again? Well, Caribbean Connections is on Friday, so you have to tune in to find out what his name is. And on tomorrow's Thursday show, we have so much in store for you, so you have to come back. We will now take the opportunity to thank the 6 lovely ladies that we had on our show today. Thank them for their contribution to making our International Women's Day show a success. So leave us a comment and let us know what was your favorite part of today's show. And see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. when you will start your morning with us right here at Good Morning SKN. Until then, thank you for watching. Have a great day. And women, enjoy your International Women's Day.